Topic of our lecture here is going to be one of old openings with some brand new ideas in it. We're going to be discussing two knights opening, two knights defense. The position I'm talking about is very well known in theory, and almost every theoretical book mentions this position and has it analyzed thoroughly. But they all come to the same conclusion, that black has good position, black has equal position. And I do not agree with it. And I have my ideas in there, and I've played many games, and I strongly believe that white has some advantage in every variation, and I have new ideas to prove, some variations to prove it. Okay, we're talking about this position. Actually, this position we can start from. Now, if black plays bishop c5, this is not two knights defense, this is gioco piano, and we're going to discuss it much later. So we start our analysis with the position of knight f6. And now white goes d4, black plays e takes d, and I do not want to discuss the consequences of a castling. Instead, I play e5, and black has here three moves in this position, three moves that can be normally considered and that analyzed in theory. One of them is knight e4, the other one is knight g4, and finally the most important and the main continuation is move d5. Now I want to go briefly with moves knight e4 and knight g4 and after that we'll totally fully concentrate on the main move d5. Now if black in this position plays knight g4, I believe that after queen to e2, and the best move for black is queen to e7 and bishop to f4, white gets some advantage in every variation, which is analyzed in ECO, Encyclopedia of Chess Openings. You can open that book and you will get detailed analysis. White gets some advantage here. So I don't have anything on my own here, but I believe whatever theory says here is good enough for white. Also, it's discussed in the opening books that move knight e4 gives black an equality, and I strongly disagree with it, because white plays bishop d5, and after black plays knight c5, white castles. Now according to theory, knight e6, and here I have idea that I want to share with you, which I think guarantees white some small but stable advantage. This is rook e1, bishop e7. This is all theory. And now I want to go knight d2, and after black castles, I want to play knight b3. Now what I want here, to get my pawn back and maintain some kind of pressure on black's position. So let's try for black to play d6. This is the most expected and obvious move. Now we play bishop takes to c6. Black plays b takes c, and white plays knight b takes to d4. Now let's look at this position. White is clearly better in my opinion because c6 pawn is hanging. Of course, black has many ways to defend it. Obviously bad is d takes e for black because white plays knight takes pawn on c6, and now as you can see black cannot take the queen because white has in between move, taking bishop with a check, and after that white plays rook takes d1, winning the game with extra piece. So now if black removes the queen, then white just wins a pawn. So obviously d takes e is a bad move for black, and the normal move is bishop to d7. And now what black can do is just simply play knight to f5, which guarantees them solid advantage. For example, d5, in my opinion, is the best move because d6 pawn is hanging. d5, taking on e5, if black plays d takes e, after knight takes e5, you can clearly see that black is in trouble. If black plays d5, then white plays knight takes e7, queen takes e7, and this position is clearly better for white because black has difficulties moving central pawns, and white has a space advantage and also some pressure on dark squares which may be developed after bishop e3 and queen d2 with rook a to d1, and black's center is blocked. Okay, this is in case black plays knight e4 or knight g4. As we mentioned, they are not very popular continuations for black. Now what we want to discuss is, and the new ideas I have for somebody who may be interested in this opening, and in something I would say the only challenge that can be given to Ruy Lopez, to Spanish opening. Well, I think after e5, white has at least as much of a chance of getting advantage as in main Ruy Lopez opening. So the main move, as we said, d5. Now we go bishop to b5. Black goes knight to e4. The other move possible for black is knight to d7. But this also is mentioned in a theory, and I think white has also clear advantage here. By playing a knight to d7, we play castle, bishop to e7 or c5, and then white plays rook e1, and when black castles go knight d2, knight to b3, and knight takes to d4. As in the previous variation, white is going to have some space advantage and a pressure, and they will get their pawn back. So, and finally, we got to the main move, knight e4, recommended by theory as the best. So we play knight takes d4, and in this position there are two moves. There is a move, bishop c5, and move bishop d7. Bishop d7 move considered as a better move for black, slightly better. What happens after bishop c5? After bishop c5, we play bishop e3. And now, if black plays, black can castle or play bishop d7. And the third move is bishop takes to d4. Those are the three continuations black has. Let's start with bishop takes to d4, on which we're going to play queen takes to d4. And now black castles, attacking this queen. So the way we get an advantage here for white is we take the bishop, b takes c, and right now we do not castle for white because after c5 black is going to have very good position. So instead we play knight c3, which stops c5 because queen will take pawn on d5. And white's idea here to keep the pressure on dark squares, to blockade those dark squares. And for example, if knight will come off the board, then white has full control on black squares, on dark squares, and has sizable advantage here. After putting bishop on c5 and castling, they're going to have control on all dark squares in the center, have advantage in pawn structure and the space. This is more than you can possibly expect from any opening. So, in this position, after knight c3, black has two moves. One of them is bishop f5, and the other one is knight g5. It's a dangerous move. White has to react correctly. Now, on the move of bishop f5, one of my students made a mistake. He played this game, he knew this opening, and he castled here. This is a big mistake, because after c5, white is in trouble. Now, because if queen takes d5, then black plays knight takes c3, and after white plays queen takes d8, now black has in between check, winning a piece. What should white do instead in this position? White should play knight takes e4, black plays bishop takes e4, and white castles. Now white has all the advantages we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Control on dark squares, space advantage, and white has much superior position, because on bishop takes c2, for instance, we're going to play rook c1, and after bishop moves back, rook takes c6, and now black is probably going to lose most of its pawns in the center. So this is what happens after black's move bishop f5.